सोच में सकारात्मकता लाएं, जीवन को बेहतर बनाएं। मनोदर्पण पर कॉल लगाएं, मनोबल अपना और बढ़ाएं। मनोदर्पण पर कॉल लगाएं, मनोबल अपना और बढ़ाएं। चलो आज ही प्रण ले हम, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य सुधारे हम। चलो आज ही प्रण ले हम, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य सुधारे हम। मनोदर्पण के काउंसलर से परामर्श पाने के लिए डायल करें टोल फ्री नंबर 844-844-0632। नंबर एक बार फिर सुने 844-844-0632।
Good evening, Namaskar viewers. I, Kriti Vadera, would like to welcome all the teachers, learners, educators and students to CIT NCERT's special live phone program. This is Sahyog session. Sahyog, where we talk about the mental well-being of our youngsters and adolescents. Sahyog and Paricharcha are initiative of Ministry of Education under MANODARPAN to give psychosocial support to all the youngsters of the nation. And today we have come up with a very relevant topic. We will be discussing in detail about the communication skills for maintaining healthy relationships. And to discuss on the same, we are joined by two guests. I would like to introduce Professor Sandhya Sahu joining us from RI Bhubaneswar. I welcome you, Professor Sahu, for today's discussion.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
And we are joined by practicing counsellor Ms. Vimala Robbie also. I welcome you as well, Ms. Robbie, for today's discussion.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
And before we begin with today's discussion, viewers, I would like to remind you here that if you have any questions, any queries or any suggestions, then please feel free and do let us know. You can dial on our toll-free number to tell us. Number would be 8800440559. And you're watching the live streaming of this particular program on NCERT's official YouTube channel. There also in the live chat box, you may send all your suggestions and questions to us. One more medium to contact us would be the email address flashing on your screens right away. So these are the various mediums to contact us and send all your suggestions and questions. Certainly we will be taking up all of them and we'll have a discussion of this same questions with the experts. And here I feel proud to announce that India assumed G20 presidency and is convening G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in the nation in 2023. A country deeply committed to democracy and multilateralism, India's G20 presidency would be a watershed moment in its history as it's going to mark an important role in finding pragmatic global solutions. And by doing so, we are truly manifesting the true spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, or the world is one family. So on this note, let us begin with today's Sahyog session. I welcome you again, both the guests. And first, I would like to bring into the discussion Professor Sahu. And I would request you, Professor Sahu, to throw some light on the topic itself of today's Sahyog, communication skills for healthy relationships, and what is the importance of this communication in building up healthy relationships.
Thank you. This is a very, very important topic because we are all human beings, we are all social beings, and all of us know that we have been gifted with a very, very, important gift, precious gift, that is speech. And if you compare with animals and human beings, we are fortunate that we are being able to talk, we are being able to speak. But this speech is again, one can use this speech to create healthy relationship, and through this speech also, through this communication also, one can kill the relationship. So today we will talk about what is communication skill and how it helps in building up healthy relationship. So as you all know that communication is, what is communication? Communication is an act of sharing information, sharing ideas, sharing feelings, and also developing a kind of interpersonal relationship. This communication can be of four types. One is the verbal communication, that we speak and we talk to each other, we communicate verbally. Then the other one is non-verbal communication. This non-verbal communication can be the signals and the signs, and then the symbols, then the gestures, and the body language, the pitch of our the whatever we say with a pitch, with a kind of rise and fall, with a kind of stress. We speak. These are all non, and our eye movement, our eye contact. These are all non-verbal. And we have also visual communication, that you all know that we are all in a social media, we watch TV, and on the road also when we go and we see different signs, different signs and different symbols. Because if there is a road, there is a school, there are humps are there, and then somebody is running, there is a cross. So these are the visual symbols. These are like we see and we know that there is a hospital, there is a road, there is a school. So, and there is a hump also, and which is a forest area, like drive slowly, elephants are crossing. So these are many visual symbols and visual signs we see and we read, and these visual things they communicate to us. And the last one is this is verbal, non-verbal, visual, and also through graphs also, through map also. This is map also communicate, graphs also communicate. So there are different types of communications happening all around. And there is a written communication. So we all know that as we are teachers and we are students also, like our viewers are some of them are like our students, we all know that we communicate also through written writing. So written communication, that you are all very well versed with written communication. And this if in the class, in the the teacher comes and teaches you and you learn all that, but you communicate whatever you understand, you communicate through your writing. So there are 4 types of communication. And this is why it is very important, because until unless we have communicate whatever is our feeling, our desires, our thoughts, and whatever our understanding in a clear manner, then it will create confusion. So as human beings, we are all naturally, we are sociable persons, and to better our relationship, we must have good communication. And now I'll stress on this verbal communication, because writing, we can write, and we write for the audience, and then we think and we edit and re-edit, and then we again write. But when we speak, it is one time. If I speak something now, it reaches you immediately. So whatever I want to speak, I must speak with an open mind, and with proper stress, with proper intonation, with proper body language, and with proper understanding of the person who is listening to me. So you are all here to listen to me, to know about, or to me to talk about what communication skill is and how effective it is for developing human relationship. So now that is now now I know what is the focus and who are my audience and what I am going to tell you. So I have now, thought of it. I have given lots of time. I have prepared. So I have now, I'm ready to talk to you. So ready to communicate to you. This communication is actually two-way. So it is not that only you are listening to me. You are also actively listening, because in the beginning, ma'am told you that you listen to us, and now you get ready with your questions. So how will you ask me questions until unless you are an active listener? So when I'm communicating, two-way, it is a two-way communication. I'm talking to you, you are listening to me, you are listening actively, and you are also, trying to understand what I say. And if you don't understand, and then you note down, that you can ask me that question. So this is a two-way communication. And this two-way communication is again developing a kind of relationship between you and me. I want to tell you is that this communication skill is called soft skill. Since we are now in 21st century have many skills to develop, and after out of those skills, communication skill is one of them. And there is a survey, LinkedIn survey in 2016. It talks about in United States, like in the list, communication topped the list, that it is the most sought after soft skill. This is not only required in the family situation, it is also required in the office, in the school, in the classroom, in your workplace, in the marketplace, wherever you go. Until and unless you speak well, first of all, I told you that you will confuse people. Second thing is that your own characteristics, you as a human being, will be if I am a bit arrogant, if I don't speak well, if I don't use the words that is socially appropriate, then the communication will have a breach. So whatever I want to say, it is all in totality you are accepting me as an individual, what I speak, my voice, my facial expressions, my eye contact, my body language, everything. You look at me and then you understand also. So if I speak well, if I do not speak well, then it reflects my character traits, that I am an arrogant person, which is who is using a very rough language, and this rough language will send a very wrong vibration. So our language has to be very polite, very soft, and convincing. And second thing is that I'll give you an example. I read in one of the stories that there was a man, he's a rishi, and he wanted to he was moving here, and normally they beg and they survive with that, like whatever they get from the people. So it became night, and he wanted to take rest. So he went to a village, and there he went to a house, and immediately the moment he opened the gate, the parrot was there, and he said ki maro maro maro, chor aaya hai, like loot lega, that kind of words the parrot was telling. And then immediately chor hai. So immediately the rishi came back and went to another house where the parrot was there. He said कि आइए बैठिए, आपको अरे मेहमान आए हैं, पानी पिलाओ, और उनको पैर धोने के लिए पानी दो. So this shows not only the culture of the person, it also the kind of language that is being used in the house. So like what I want to say is that, like, if you are using a particular kind of language which is not, you don't feel like listening to the language, or like chore hai, you don't feel like listening to that language. So in that family, children and the family members, they must be speaking that kind of language, and this shows their lifestyle also, this shows their culture also. And on the other hand, the other family where the parrot is speaking so softly, it shows that there is a good communication between, good relationship, healthy relationship. There is no doubt, there is no confusion, there is always fellow feeling, sharing, that kind of thing, feeling you get that this family must be enjoying. Kindly tell me if I exceed 7 minutes, because my other
Yes, you may continue if you wish to. We will, of course, introduce the next speaker also. We'll take her also in.
So
yes.
Like what I want to say is that, like when are communicating, for effective communication, the most important thing is that you should be polite. You should choose the words that you speak.
Right.
Because until unless the words are not appropriate, it may create a kind of ill feeling in the heart of the person, in the mind of the person. The second thing is that you must make your the listener, the listener should be glued to what you say. So for that, your like what I told you earlier, that your tone, your the stress pattern and the intonation and the rise and fall of the sentence, of the words, that is very important. I'll give one more example. Suppose I say thank you. Suppose you have given me something and I liked it. Then I said thank you. That means I'm very politely I'm saying thank you in a rising tone. So this shows that I am thanking you from the bottom of my heart, bottom of my heart. I really feel like thanking you. Suppose I don't want, like I'm not very happy, and but you have given me something. Thank you. Thank you means keep the things and go like that.
Right.
So your communication, know like who is inviting, who is really appreciating,
Right.
and who is just trying to reject you, and us just trying to just say, it's a matter of fact, yeah, come and you come and keep the things and go like that. So in the family also, when your guests come, the way you politely you welcome them, that is also makes the other person feel elated, feel happy, and feel
Absolutely.
great also.
You have
That
to
is
be
very
very
important.
firm and you have to be very polite in terms of communication, even if you are interacting with the strangers. And with this, I would like to bring into the discussion our practicing counselor, Ms. Vimla Robbie. Ms. Robbie, bringing you into the discussion, and here I would like you to throw some light on the methods of communication. And are there any obstacles which these youngsters would be facing? If you could brief on this also.
So I think one form of communication interruption that the pandemic era familiarized us with was, am I audible? Am I, your signal's breaking? Ma'am, I mean, I recall hearing so many, so often I recall hearing, oh, ma'am, you're breaking. I was like, I'm breaking? Okay, your voice is breaking or the signal's breaking, right? So, I mean, that's of course something that we saw as a very tangible evidence of a communication breakdown. But otherwise, as Dr. Sandhyarani just told us, there are 4 stages to the linear model in communication, where you have your thought that you express, you verbalize, and I mean, you have an idea, you express it, the next person hears, the person understands, and then of course it may go back and forth. So when you look at these 4 stages, there are different problems that occur at different, there are complete breakdowns that happen in any of these stages. One is that you don't express what you feel or what you want. There is a Malayalam proverb which means only the crying child will be given milk. So unless you express what you wish or what your opinion is, you can't expect the world to understand it. So for various reasons, there are times when we hold back ourselves from expressing what we feel or what we see. The second, as ma'am had brought up, sometimes the tone that we speak conveys so much more. The non-verbal communication can convey so much more. People may maybe saying something very polite, but may not be sounding polite. Or people may be especially in closer relationships, whether it is between parents and children or whether it is between friends, sometimes we do have a tendency to use, it may be our way of hitting back because of something that we have been through. We would be very hurtful or, yes, very hurtful in what we would say. And we would say things that would maybe break down the other person's confidence. So speaking angrily, shouting, using hurtful words, or speaking in a hurtful manner, sometimes, very often adolescents come up with a problem where they have shared something that is something that they feel very vulnerable about with their best friend, and the best friend goes on and shares it with someone else, and or later on in a discussion, or in the best friend has a fight with the first girl, and then comes back and says, oh, you are like this, I understood, I know that you are like this. They use whatever was told as a secret or as something that for the something the first child confessed about, as a tool to hurt that child. So being hurtful in any way to a person in through your communication, that's another obstacle that is faced. Then, as ma'am brought up the issue of or the skill in active listening. So we very often aren't listening really well. We are listening only in terms of, okay, what am I going to reply? Especially you would see that when siblings are fighting, when you're fighting with your friends, you would see that, as soon as the person starts telling you something, you're already you've already started formulating what smarter answer you would give. So you're not really listening to what that person is trying to tell you, and you know try and understand what that person is doing. Now the fourth stage, or where understanding comes in, we very often allow assumptions to misguide us. And I personally recall this from my experience as a young bride in the family, and where my husband's mother said something, and because I was expecting it to be, oh, this is my mother-in-law speaking, so I'm sure she's going to be saying something hurtful. So I expected it to be something like that, and whatever she said, I assumed it. I interpreted it very differently from what she intended. And I had a moment of introspection just a few minutes later, where I realized maybe that's not what she meant. She may not have meant to hurt me. And then I walked up to her and I asked her, and I realized that that was only my misconception that led me. So similarly, I mean, that's a very blatant example that we all face, but these are the kind of examples that we face very often. And so when we are aware of these kind of errors or these kind of obstacles that we face, uh, there is there are things that we can do in order to make sure that we don't make those mistakes. So one is, be conquer that fear that is stopping you from saying whatever you wish to, and express yourself clearly. Of course, make sure that the situation and the circumstance allows it. But if it is someone who matters to you, please try and express what you feel or what you have in mind. Secondly, be respectful in your communication. Whatever you may wish to say, be respectful. And the third is that you listen. If your friend is trying to tell you something, and at that point of time you're trying to focus on something else and you cannot listen, tell your friend or tell your child that you cannot listen at that point of time. Why don't you say, okay, let's discuss this a little later. Let me finish what I'm doing, right? Rather than allowing your child to maybe go on speaking to you, whereas you're not listening to that child. So let's make sure that we listen carefully, and let us not make too many assumptions in our interpretations. Let's not try to read too much between the lines or add our own corollaries. What one can do is, for example, now, if your parent has given you a task to be completed, or your parent is saying, why haven't you studied for a test? Do not assume that they are being unfair to you by asking you that question rather than to your sibling. Again, I recall a personal experience from my childhood, where I remember writing in my diary, how unfair were my parents to do this. And, when I grew up, I remember laughing at the whole thing, because, there is more understanding that comes to us with time. Yeah, so these are the main obstacles that we would face, and yeah, the best things to the way we can conquer those obstacles.
Be conquered with your free will, viewers and the young students who are watching us today. And here, when we have understood how to conquer your obstacles, Professor Sahu, I would like you to quickly brief all of our viewers about the mistakes generally what we do in our day-to-day communication and how to improve it.
Thank you. As I have already told you, and Bimla madam has already told you, that like interaction is the most important thing. That interaction has to be very positive interaction that creates relationship. And these relationships are also very crucial so far as the living in society is also concerned. Living in the family, living in the school also, it is very, very important. So this communication can be both phenomenal and also catastrophic. So she talked about this catastrophic aspect of communication, and how normally, like these adolescents, and sometimes we also adults, we also commit mistakes and create a kind of very catastrophic relationship. Means like relationship, it breaks down. So this if the communication is good, as she very rightly pointed out, that respect for each other, and listening very patiently to whatever the other person is saying is very important. So because as she very rightly pointed out, that happens to every bride. newly, I mean, married bride, that like always that is a mindset that it comes with like it has been told that mother-in-laws may speak in a very, I mean, in a different manner. The communication is different from the mother, but actually it's not the same as she has rightly pointed out. But this communication, when it is a healthy communication, that creates a kind of dopamine in the mind, dopamine which is responsible for feeling pleasure, satisfaction, and feel motivated to work. So this dopamine is increased when there is a like when the communication is good. I mean, it is fruitful and effective communication, and it has a very deeper emotional connection, in the sense that I have already told you that if I am happy when I talk to you, when I interact with you, then a kind of emotional satisfaction I get, and I trust you also, and I whatever you say, I believe in you. So as she pointed out, that today the younger generations, they do not have patience to listen to others. They always say, maybe it is because of the way they are being brought up. They are like nuclear family, they are all their problems, everything is given to them, so they become very demanding. So in their communication also, it is me and it is my desire, it is my life, it is, I mean, always that me comes first. So in the process, like whenever they say something, there is a demand in their voice, there is a kind of little bit arrogance in their voice. So that can be very detrimental to build up a relationship. So for that matter, what is that they should have one open mind. They should have open mind and they should have honest communication. ये नहीं कि कुछ hide करके फिर बोलना. It's not that. Let us be very clear. And until unless there is clarity in your speech, clarity in your communication, definitely everything will lead to a kind of different direction. So there is another thing is there is a development of people skill. People skill means that you must know to whom you are talking to. For example, if I am talking to a shopkeeper, my language will be different. If I am talking to my teacher, my language will be different. But I mean, like the way I communicate will be different with my mother, with my father, with my friends. So communication differs. The words that I'm using differs. They differ when I talk to different people. So that people skill has to be there, and one must have the ability to relate to others. Until unless I relate to people, so my communication fails. So I cannot go and talk to a shopkeeper and speak about multilingualism or anything related to language teaching and learning. It will be meaningless for him. So with him, I'll have a different set of things and different situation. This is, I mean, whatever I am communicating, it should be situation appropriate and people appropriate. So that is people skill they must have. The other thing I wanted to say is that second, like the important thing that they should know is like they should be a patient listener also. Until unless you listen, you will not be able to speak. Speak means listen to whatever is the problem, and whatever, if you want to say something, you should know what is there to say. So if you don't listen, as Mimla has already pointed out, until you listen, you do not know the problem or do not know the topic, how can you say something? So communication will, if you do not listen to the person well. So listening carefully is another important aspect of healthy communication, for developing healthy communication skills and healthy relationship. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is that it should have a straight talk. You cannot just beating round the bush and start talking. If you start talking, beating round the bush, then definitely the communication will fail. And always try to be a little bit humorous while speaking. If you be a bit humorous and try to forget what has happened in the past, if there is some kind of
any emotional grudge or any mishappening which has happened, that can be forgiven. Yes,
that you have to forget that. And second, the other one is you should be tolerant also. Sometimes you feel little bit irritated कि क्या बोल रहा है. So, but even then, when you are speaking, you should be a bit tolerant and you should be calm. If you do not like be calm and composed, then whatever you say, your irritated mind will be reflected. Your communication will
Right.
reflect your irritated mind, your displeasure, and your anger.
Right.
So for effective communication, you should or to build up a kind of healthy relationship, you must be calm, you must be quiet, you must be composed, and you must be you leave behind the past, be a bit humorous, and you should also be to the point. So that is very focused.
Right.
If you start communicating and you speak X, Y, Z, and then you connect to something,
Right.
and in we call in English it is existential philosophy. Means there's a chain
Right.
of association. We
Yes.
don't do that chain of association. इसके साथ ये, इसके साथ ये, इसके don't
So, with
associate
this,
things.
we are
Rather,
entering into the last
very
segment
focused.
of today's Sahyog, Professor Sahu. And here I would like to bring into the discussion Miss Robbie. Miss Robbie, when we have understood the entire ecosystem of communication, being it parents, school, teachers, educators, or the community, so how to keep a focus in keeping a positive communications with all this ecosystem? If you could just throw light in few minutes on this, please.
Course, yes. So I would just say the factor that affects these ecosystems, as you said, is normally the factors that affect it are the inequality in power between the relationships. So, for example, now between a teacher and a student, the teacher is obviously considered to be the authority figure there. Similarly, between parents and children, the parent has the final say in whatever happens. So this inequality in the power may sometimes affect the communication. Similarly, the reactive or uncommunicative nature or the temperaments of either of the communicators. So someone who is short tempered, someone else will hesitate before they discuss something with them. Someone who is not very communicative, is not very expressive, again, you may think twice before deciding to share something with that person. So I will just quickly say what I feel I would like to share with parents. Especially parents, I am aware that parenting is a very daunting task. None of us are experts in it. I wish there was some PhD that one could do in parenting. Yet when interacting with your child, just remember that you are the older member, and so maybe the wiser person. So be patient and express the love that you have for your child. Let that be your child's strength, and let that give your child the confidence to communicate with you. Keep that channel for communication open. Similarly, teachers, I would remind you to be non-judgmental at all times. Be, the academic performance of the child or the personality of the child or the family background should not matter. Be sensitive to what the child wishes to tell you. One child may not be able to open up in the presence of another teacher or in the presence of another classmate about a problem the child is facing, whereas another child may require the support of a friend to approach a teacher with a problem. So let's not create a fixed grid and expect all students to fit in.
Right.
And one concluding remark that I would make is that communication is actually something that works for those who work at it. Make a conscious effort, irrespective of what kind of, who you have a relationship with, whether it's your sibling, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends. Make a conscious effort, pause a moment before you speak. So make sure you're not hurting, and be honest in what you're saying. If you care enough, make an effort to listen genuinely.
Absolutely. And with that, we have understood that communication is the key to all your success, viewers. And beautifully, both the speakers have elaborated on today's Sahyog topic, which was communication in building healthy relationships. I thank you, Ms. Robbie, for joining us today. It was wonderful having you today.
Thank you so much.
And I thank you, Professor Sahu, for joining us today as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this was a Sahyog session where we discussed in detail about how to build healthy relationships, how to have a good communication. And here I would like to remind you that if academic session of NCERT has already begun, and if you haven't purchased the textbooks, you can simply buy them from the publication division of NCERT, situated at New Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Kolkata, Guwahati. Also you can buy these books, and the timings for these divisions would be 9 AM to 6:30 PM. They are open on all gazetted holidays and on Saturdays, Sundays as well. If you want to place an online order, simply log into NCERT's official website, place an order. You'll be getting all these books right at your doorstep without any delivery charge. And if you want to read the PDF version of the books, then you can simply download the mobile applications of ePathshala, Diksha and NCERT. There you'll be finding all the textbooks in PDF version. And on the website of NCERT also, PDF version of all textbooks is available. So this was Sahyog session. Remain connected to PM eVidya to watch NCERT's resource material. Thank you. Namaskar.
सोच में सकारात्मकता लाएं, जीवन को बेहतर बनाएं। मनोदर्पण पर कॉल लगाएं, मनोबल अपना और बढ़ाएं। मनोदर्पण पर कॉल लगाएं, मनोबल अपना और बढ़ाएं। चलो आज ही प्रण ले हम, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य सुधारे हम। चलो आज ही प्रण ले हम, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य सुधारे हम। मनोदर्पण के काउंसलर से परामर्श पाने के लिए डायल करें टोल फ्री नंबर 844-844-0632। नंबर एक बार फिर सुने 844-844-0632।